Welcome to Talks with Dr. Gupta and Friends. Picture this. You wake up one morning in January 2026 and the headline is jaw-dropping. The president in question, Nicolas Maduro. The country, Venezuela. U.S. Special Forces raid Caracas. Venezuelan president taken into American custody. The reason it matters is because of what it reveals about power, law, and the future of the global order. These operations have been dissected by Douglas Macgregor, former U.S. Army colonel, Jeffrey Sachs, economist and geopolitical analyst, Larry Johnson, former CIA and counter-terrorism official. Their conclusions are unsettling, not because they glorify the idea, but because they warn how dangerously plausible it has become. How would such an operation even work? According to Macgregor, an operation to seize a sitting president would require overwhelming force. He describes it memorably as using a jackhammer to kill a flea. The point isn't the target, it's the scale. Air superiority, naval control, special forces, intelligence dominance. All of that for one man? Which leads to an obvious question. Is the real objective something much bigger? The official story you'd be told. The analysts agree on one thing. The public justification would sound very familiar. Expect phrases like fighting drug trafficking, eliminating terrorist training camps, stopping narco gangs, restoring democracy and freedom. And here's the key legal trick. It would be framed as law enforcement, not war. That framing matters. It's designed to avoid congressional war authorization, lower public resistance, blur the line between policing and invasion. The real motive, according to the experts, and this is where the analysis gets uncomfortable. Behind the rhetoric, Sachs and others argue the real driver is resources and dominance. Specifically, oil, strategic control. Finishing what Sachs calls a 20-year project to reassert U.S. dominance in the region. And this matters because Venezuela isn't just any country. Venezuela's strategic reality, largest proven oil reserves on Earth, vast natural gas deposits, gold and critical minerals, geographic leverage in the Western Hemisphere. In other words, a strategic treasure chest. The aftermath, where everything falls apart. All three analysts agree on one thing. The raid is the easy part. Macgregor puts it bluntly, getting in is easy. What follows is hell. Larry Johnson uses an old term, tar baby, a problem that traps you the more you struggle with it. The predicted sequence is chillingly familiar. Quick military success, failure to install a legitimate government, popular resistance and insurgency, calls for more U.S. troops, long, bloody, expensive occupation. Think Iraq, Afghanistan, Vietnam. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Global shockwaves. The consequences wouldn't stop at Venezuela's borders. According to Sachs, this would signal a collapse of the post-World War II legal order. International law becomes optional. The United Nations is sidelined. The UN Charter is effectively shredded. Smaller states learn a brutal lesson. Sovereignty is conditional. Sachs even compares this moment to the collapse of the Roman Republic, when laws quietly gave way to raw executive power. How the world reacts. The analysts predict a grim global response. Europe, symbolic protests, no real resistance. Russia, strategic patience, let the US bleed. China, economic countermoves, not military confrontation. But the signal to the world would be unmistakable. Power, not law, decides outcomes. The final question. And this brings us to the real issue. Not Venezuela, not oil, not even America. The real question is this. What happens to the world when a superpower decides that international law no longer applies to it? If might makes right, then treaties are fiction, borders are temporary, and security becomes a privilege, not a right. That is the future these experts are warning about. And whether or not this scenario ever happens, the fact that it can be discussed seriously tells us something profound about the world we are entering. In a world where power replaces rules, what kind of future are we all being pushed into? That's the conversation we need to have. Stay safe and happy new thinking.